So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to structure your half marathon training block. With what I'm going to teach you in this video, this structure has got me from an hour 52 half marathon all the way down to an hour 18 half marathon in just about 2 years. So really what I want to do in this video is just talk about how you structure a half marathon training plan. And I'll say that if you keep stacking these training plans like one after the other, you will eventually become substantially faster as a runner. And in this video, I just want to break it down as simply as I can because I really think that a lot of people overcomplicate it. I think it is really simple. The three things that I'm going to say for the training block is that you want to do the build, the peak, and the taper. That's it. Those are the three rules to the training plan, is just the build, the peak, and the taper. I'll keep saying it probably many times through this video, but that's really the basics of what I want to teach you in this video. So this is going to be a 12-week training block. Obviously, you can do a little bit more or a little bit less. I'd say the average person probably goes anywhere between 16 and 9 weeks. I'd say 12, at least for a half marathon, feels like the absolute perfect spot for me. So honestly, the whole 12-week training block is actually really simple. So I kind of have this diagram here showing the 12 weeks. Each dot obviously represents a week. And what you're going to want to do here is, if you see how I've laid this out here, you have 4 weeks in the build, 6 weeks in the peak, and then 2 weeks in the taper. The build is going to be obviously the first 4 weeks of this training block, and what you're going to want to do is roughly look at the mileage that you've been running over the past however many months. For the purpose of this video, I said it was roughly 18 miles or 30K. And then what you're going to want to do in that build is increase your overall mileage by about 40%. You don't want to do too much more because that could increase injury. And when you hit your peak, you know that hitting that peak is not something you can maintain for too long. The goal for that peak is to just kind of be right at that limit of what you're capable of and then taper up. So in that first 4 weeks, you only want to increase your mileage by about 10%. So as you can see in the diagram, it goes from about 18 miles or 30K up to about 30 miles or 50K. And at that point, then roughly what I like to do is I have 6 weeks where I'm holding that peak volume, so 30 miles or 50K. And right around halfway into that peak is when I want to start introducing a little bit more speed. The first roughly 6-7 weeks before that, I'm really just focusing on zone 2. I'm not doing too much speed. My goal for those first like 6-7 weeks is just to really get the mileage down and really start running as much as I can and just like very consistently building and then starting to maintain. At least early on when you're just kind of learning this, don't worry about speed too much. Just really worry about being extremely consistent and building that mileage to that peak. Once you get kind of halfway through that peak week, then you can kind of start working on some speed and maybe some quality long runs. And then after that's done, then you roughly have about a 2-week taper. For a half marathon, I recommend 2 weeks. I've experimented with this a little bit and I find that I've done a 3-week taper and I'm not quite as fresh on race days when I do a 2-week taper. Maybe if you're doing a marathon, you could do a 3-week taper, but for a half, I think just 2 is good. I think some people recommend tapering a little bit too early, and I really find that about 2 weeks is good, which means after your peak week, you just have kind of 1 taper week plus then race week, which I kind of count as taper because obviously the race is going to be at the end of that 12-week or that final week. But yeah, with all that, that is pretty much how you're going to structure a half marathon training plan. You have the build, the peak, and the taper. There are other plans that get into way more detail with it, but I really think that that's all you need to know. That is the most basic way to break down a 12-week half marathon training plan. With that being said, now I'll go into roughly kind of some runs that I'll do. I won't go into volume, but just roughly what some of those runs are going to look like through a 1 to 7 day, obviously, training plan. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to say the long run is going to be on a Sunday, and then once you know what day your long run is, whatever that might be, you want to cushion that with an easy run the day before or the day after. Then the way I'm going to do it for this video is you might want to have your rest day on a Friday, and then depending how you feel, you could have a speed day kind of on the Wednesday, which would then obviously then again mean that Tuesday and Thursday are going to be fairly easy running. And what I mean on that speed day is nothing crazy. It just means pushing the pace a little bit with whatever you feel like you kind of want to do in the day, whether it's just a tempo run, a threshold run, which I know can also get confusing, which really I'll just say then, just a comfortably hard run. Don't overthink it, especially when you're in the build in the early stages of the peak. Just do whatever feels right. Once you then hit kind of that, halfway through the peak, then I'd say you could maybe even do 2 speed workouts a week, and I'll give some examples here. You could just do something as simple as a 12K overall workout, which would be a 3K warm-up, followed by 6x1K at roughly half marathon pace with 1 minute walking recovery is what I recommend, and then a 3K cooldown. You then also could do some VO2 max or speed work. These are just rough examples. You can kind of do whatever you want with them. So then with the speed work could be something like, again, a 3K warm-up or a 2K warm-up, whatever feels right. Then you could do 5 times 1 minute, 5 times 45 seconds, 5 times 30 seconds, and those are really about going way above and beyond what feels comfortable. Again, I know this is starting to get a little bit confusing, but I'm really trying to keep it as simple as I can. You can also then start to do some quality long runs, which, as simple as it is, means say you're doing something like a 19K long run. You could just add in 5 times 2K at marathon or at goal half marathon pace, with then 1K just going at kind of easy recovery pace. I'd really say don't overthink paces too much. I think that the average person is just really looking to structure a training plan. And really, with that being said, don't overthink the actual runs themselves too much. Really stick with that zone 2 easy running. And early on, maybe mix in one day where you're kind of going above that a little bit. Obviously, with the long run, which I'll say forever is extremely important, probably one of the most important things. And then as a training block progresses into that kind of mid-peak is when you might want to start introducing 2 speed workouts, which would be something like a tempo, comfortably hard run with a little bit of track work or strides or something along those lines, and then potentially mixing in some quality long runs. And then you taper up. That's really it. I really tried my best to simplify it as much as I can. As you start to get more advanced, obviously there's way more to it. These workouts can become more complicated. But right now I wanted to just break it down as simply as I can. I think a training block is in 3 phases. I know sometimes you see people doing it 4 phases, 5 phases, but I think the simplest way is to just do the 3-phase build, peak, taper. That's really it. I don't think you need to worry about too much more. Some of the running that happens during that is where it can kind of get a little bit confusing, but you really also then have to feel your body out. I would really recommend 1 speed workout and 1 long run a week. As the training block progresses, you can then do 2 speed workouts and maybe a quality long run, but even that might be a little bit too much. But just knowing your body, listening to your body, and understanding that if you just follow that basic rule of building only by 10%, roughly overall it will be about 40% until your peak, and then you taper up. You should be good. You shouldn't get injured. If you do a little, like too much more than that, you might get hurt. What then that would lead to is potentially just, you start stacking training blocks, and every training block that you do after, the previous one, you go higher and higher, you run more volume, and obviously you then start to run faster times. But the most basic structure of a training plan for any run, not just a half marathon, would be roughly what I just talked about in this video. The build, the peak, the taper. I'll just keep saying it. Those are the 3 rules to a training plan. With all that being said though, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped, and I hope that it helps you structure your half marathon training plan. If this video helped, please feel free to like and subscribe and check out my channel. I'm currently training to run an hour 15 half marathon while using this pretty much exact 12 weeks. I'm actually doing a 14 week, but roughly it's going to be this pretty much exact structure that I'm showing you here in this video. And as I said in the beginning of this video, this structure of a training plan got me from running an hour 52 to an hour 18 in about 2 years, just doing this training plan, or just doing this rough structure of a training plan over and over. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please feel free to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.